Excited to be here today.
Yes, very excited. What's our plans for today?
Well, we got to pick up our daughter, and we have a graduation to go to today. So we got a lot on the schedule.
Yeah.
It feels like our schedule's getting busier and busier because it's graduation season, and
Our schedule fills up by the minute, I think, right?
Yes.
It's just so, our calendar fills up quickly, and so, but we pivot, and we love it. It keeps us busy, but
life's never boring.
no, never boring at all. So we're going to a graduation today to celebrate one of our teenagers that is graduating, that goes to our church. Wonderful family. And speaking of graduation, our son is graduating in 4 days on Friday. How do you feel about that?
I think I had pushed it to the back burner of my mind because I wasn't sure if I was ready to deal with it. And now that we're getting to the point to where I have to, I'm realizing, man, this is a lot more difficult than I realized it was going to be.
Time goes by extremely fast.
Yeah.
To all you parents out there with small babies, you blink and they're graduating. That's
Yes.
what really it's felt like with teenagers. And so he's 18, about to graduate, and his plans are to go to college here, junior college in Vegas, and hope to continue his baseball life. He's been playing baseball for 15 years.
It's been a long time.
So it's been very exciting. And so our transition as parents is we were going to every single practices, whichever sport the kids were a part of. And now we're transitioning to, that's going to all change with Braden's schedule.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see him play as much. And that, I think for us, if you're a baseball parent or a sports parent, it hurts. Like it physically hurts to know that we can't go to any more practices or we won't be. And so we're now learning how what that's gonna look like. Mm-hmm. For you as his dad that's coached him, right? Like how does that make you?
Well, he's navigating through his life and what he's going to do in his future. I'm also, I mean, speaking for myself, I'm navigating as his dad now.
What are you gonna do for your future?
Yeah, and I'm like, what about me? Mentality, right? And it's like that occupied my time. So it's like, okay, so that means I'm gonna have to pivot right now. I'm gonna have more time on my hands, and I know that could feel scary for me. I think now I'm realizing that's gonna be a good thing because it'll allow me to pour more energy into other areas too.
Yeah.
And I'm really praying that he does continue his baseball career. That would be wonderful. But the priority is education.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that, we're setting our kids up for success. And I think that's where we've really pivoted as parents. We've prepared them for this moment. Now we're kind of letting them spread their wings a little bit, and our son in particular, and just trying to help him navigate through that. And so for me, it's just been a challenge.
I was just saying that we went to every single practice for 15 years, every practice, every game. And I wouldn't change that for anything. For the ones with young parents right now that have the small children, what would you recommend? Get your kids involved. Not just get your kids involved in like sports or extracurricular activity. I know my daughter was in dance, sports, but be there, be present. I think the one thing that we didn't do or we learned early on was that we weren't going to be the type of parents that worked all day and saw our kids just for a few minutes at night and we weren't involved in their practices or whatnot. We decided this is the style of parenting we were going to have, right?
Yeah, I think we got used to the whole life of balancing everything, because it's possible for you to have a busy life, but then also just be intentional with your time.
Intentional,
So
yes.
it's like, I'm going to designate this time for, to show up at least a little bit. If you could be involved in that way, it'll change your life. And over time, in consistency, you'll see that it was the best part of your life. And that's the only reason why this is hurting us so much.
It was the best
Because
part.
we really enjoyed the in-between. It wasn't just the games. It was the building up to the game that we really enjoyed. And so if you can have a little bit of part of that, I know for some of you parents out there, I know it may not be practical for you because you do work, but if you have the ability to be intentional with your time a little bit, maybe you make some arrangements, be a part of that, be present, because it's in those moments that you wish you could get it back.
But we were intentional. We actually decided, and I know that this is not practical for everybody.
Right.
But we, early on in our marriage, you were working 40, 60 hours a week, at a job, and I was raising the kids.
Right.
And I think our family had a wedding chapel, and I worked one day out of that week just to help. But I was raising the 3 kids. We had 3 kids, all under 5. But we had learned early on, this is not what we want.
Right.
We didn't want for me to take the kids to extracurricular things and for you to miss out. So we were very intentional, and we had a dream to be able to start our own business,
Right.
and to be entrepreneurs,
Right.
to be able to earn money, but that wouldn't be our focus. It would be, how can we be involved in our kids' lives? And we were intentional. So what we did that, we set out to start our own business, which was a wedding chapel, and that freed us to do what we were able to do for 15 years. So being intentional and actually having a goal and a commitment as a couple, we're going to be at every practice, we're going to be at every game. So how do we do that? Rather than looking at what type of job can we have to build our bank account, and everything else was secondary. We actually made it primary to say, I want to be present parents, even if we weren't millionaires.
Right.
But I was going to be present. So it was a decision that we made. We were intentional on doing it. We didn't live the rich life, right? But we were intentional on funding our kids' dreams,
Right.
to play. So yeah, I mean, because there's a time that you figured, wait, I'm missing stuff.
Right. I remember specifically, I felt good about providing. That wasn't an issue, because I've always been good at that. My dad taught me well. So going to work was easy. I felt like I had the easier part of it than you staying home having to raise the kids. And I know for you, a totally different experience, because when I got home, I always knew you were like, okay, they're yours.
Target run.
Right?
Target was my safe place. I think you'd work, I'd be with the kids, and I'd be like, okay, I'm out, it's your turn.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But you were actually very gracious towards me, because you had just worked a long day. But you gave me the space to do what I needed to do, which was to walk around Target and do nothing, just walk around.
Right.
But to help me unwind, and I'm not saying like my kids were horrible, they weren't horrible, but I think it gave me my opportunity just to be me. But you were very gracious in that, and you allowed that to happen, even if you were, worked a full day.
I really enjoyed being with my kids, so I think that's where it stemmed from. Just playing together, spending quality time. So I really enjoyed it. I think the struggle sometimes was just sleep. Sleep deprivation really changes you. And you feel like, man, I have nothing left in the tank, and they, the kids, they wait for you to come home. And so when you get home, they're ready to go, and you're like, man, I'm not firing on all cylinders. I'm really exhausted, but it's like I have to, go to my reserves. And really dig deep sometimes, and I felt like in those moments it wasn't just about spending time with them. I also wanted to give you a break, because I realized you had the hard job, and I didn't realize that until I actually was required. You were going out of town, and you were like, okay, you're going to have to take care of kids. You can't call me to figure out what's to eat for dinner. You have to actually be a dad, and you actually do your job. And so when I was put in that position,
they ate mac and cheese all day.
Oh yeah, they did, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I married you for a reason. You're a phenomenal cook.
Thank you.
But in terms of taking care of them, I was really challenged. I had to really become the father I was always meant to be. And so I realized, man, your job is the harder job. It was easy for me to go to work, but for me to stay home and really do the things that I'm like what you do, and maybe live a day in your shoes, I realized, man, I had so much more respect for you, so much more honor for you, which I should have had it to begin with, okay? But I'm learning, right, as a young dad and as a young husband. And so it's those moments like that really transform my thinking. But going back to the whole Braden thing, with shoot, I lost my train of thought. Because what were we talking about?
We were talking about you realized you were missing out.
Okay, so let me say it. So I remember walking in a room one day after working 50 hours that week, and I think it was a Friday night. I remember walking in the room, and then just going in the room. I used to just always go in the room and just check on them and see how they were doing, because it was late. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm missing so much. I'm missing so much time. And I made a decision that day, what can I do better so that way I can be more present in my kids' lives? And that's with sports, that's with a lot of things. And I felt like I was just spending all of my time in one area. And that's when I think you and I came together and decided, okay, well, this is what we're going to do.
We're going to strive for it.
We're going to strive for it. And I think everybody can come to their conclusion about like what you can do better to manage the things that matter most to you. And for us, it was always our kids.
To spend time.
time.
The most time that we can with them.
Yes.
And a lot of people will strive for, well, if we build our finances and let's take the next 10 years and work our butts off to build our finances. We had a different goal, which was to, how can we figure out a way where we can provide for our kids, not know lack, right? Not live in poverty, but how can we be more present in their life while making sure that we're taken care of? Right. And so that was our goal. That was the target. Was we just want to be there, and because we realized, I think, that we had 18 years. I mean, we had a short time with them, and we're going to be in their face as much as we possibly can. Right. And so that was our intention, and I just thank God, because of the grace of God, that allowed us to be that present in our kids' life. And that I know that they're going to remember that as they grow older, but we were very present, and probably too present sometimes. Right?
Yeah, so I think when you're so present in your kid's life, in the moment, it presents a challenge for them, because you're doing it for the right intentions, but it may be difficult for them as well, because I think for them it's like, well, I want personal space, privacy for them, right? They, these days kids want to be on their own, they want to be independent, right? But for us, we're just thinking we want to spend that quality time. We want to develop that kind of relationship. I think what you develop early on in a relationship, whether it's specifically with your kids, I think is going to determine what you have later. And I think you and I have always talked about that. What it's not just about the here and now. It's about later. What kind of relationship do we want with them later? And you and I always talk. We want to be close. We don't want to be like, we only talk on holidays. Or spend time with each other on holidays. We want to travel together. We want to do
with their spouses, with their future spouses. We want to be friends with our kids. But and I think we were intentional with that, because the way we grew up, the way I grew up, I didn't have that type. I will one day talk about my mom, but we didn't have the close relationship where. She worked a lot. She was a single mom, and so I'd go to cheerleading practices and cheerleading games, and I didn't have anybody in the stands, just because. And this is no shade to my mom at all, but she worked. She was a single mom that worked, and so she wasn't very present. And so I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have like my mom and dad at every event for me, and so me growing up and having kids, I wanted to make sure that I would be the mom that was there. At everything. And so, yes. I think, and
that was my point earlier, our kids don't see the other side of why you're doing what you're doing. They're just like, man, my parents are always in my face, they're always just there.
But I think they liked it, honestly.
You think so?
Well, yeah. I think, like, Braden never got to the point where he's like, oh, you guys don't need to be at this practice. He never did. He actually expected us to be there. Maybe he wouldn't show it sometimes, be like, thank you for coming to my practice, but he never minded us showing up. And so I'm thankful for that. And same as with Kaylee. Once, obviously deciding that spending time with our kids or showing up at their practices, that also meant how did we fit in just laying a foundation of faith as well. Going to church together. Just them knowing the house of God on Sundays was vital, and that's what we were going to do as a family, because that even was affected with sports. But we actually would tell our son growing up Sundays was non-negotiable, even if we had sports. So that was a big thing for our kids, and we had to learn how to navigate raising them in church, but also letting them know that sports was also important.
Right.
Because I know that there are some people that may look at, sports are not important in compared to church. I think it's not maybe equally important, but it is important. And I feel like you should invest into your kids, not just church and ministry, not just be one-sided, but also say your dreams and what you want to do, I will support that as well. But how do we find the balance of for our kids to understand ministry, loving God's house, but also loving what they want to do, like sports and.
I think it required a lot of leadership on our part to, number one, lead by example. And you and I have always tried to set an example for our kids in terms of priority. And a lot of what we've taught them is priority, how to operate in a busy life, but still put your priorities in its proper place. And I think the point is, you know, just because you love God, just because you know that you're called to ministry, doesn't mean that, you know, that's the only thing that you're going to do.
Right.
There's a lot of other things that happen in life that, you know, are important. It's not so much about being equal. It's about balance and managing all of that.
Taking on trips, vacations.
Yes.
That's equally important.
Yeah.
Right.
I think in ministry too, in past times, I think what we have done is in the name of showing how important God is and ministry, we have also deprived kids from doing things that they're passionate
Let's
about.
explain that. I think early in the ministry, probably for the first 10 years, we talk about what would we have changed in the first 10 years of us serving in ministry and raising our kids. And we say it all the time, what would we have done different? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I think I need a little bit more information.
We talk about all the time how we would have taken more trips.
Oh.
We were the kind of couple that we didn't miss Sundays at all, like at all. And so if we had a regret to bring up raising our kids, we would have taken more time off.
Absolutely. Because it's all about memories.
Yeah.
It's all about memories, and it's all about quality time, and it's all about investing in each other, even above gifts. Now, I love gifts, believe me. I love giving them. I love how it feels. But the thing I value most is the memories we build together.
The time.
That's the thing that matters, because I'll forget about what I bought or what I received. But the thing if you remember when we took our historical trip as a family, we still talk about it. And they were small, they were young, but they remember in detail everything that we did. So it mattered so much to them. And I realized those are the things that really impact their life the most, you know, outside of ministry, outside of their relationship with God, like as a family unit. If we just invested more in those opportunities, I think we would be so much even better off than we are now.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that we would change. We would have taken more trips. We would have spent more time, definitely the things that are our priority list, I think.
Yeah. I think just for the kids to understand priorities.
Yes.
And if they saw it modeled through us, where we can be in ministry, we can do sports, we can focus on school, and we could also go out on trips.
Yes, and that's the advice that we would give any family.
Even if the trips weren't expensive.
Yes.
I think there's times that we got in the car and drove to California, didn't go to a theme park, we just went. I think that was one of the best times that we would have.
Yeah, because not everybody's the same. I realize, some families think about the financial part of it. And I know that's a struggle. I'm like, well, what would you suggest? And it's really figuring out even things that are inexpensive to do.
Yeah.
Staycations have always been a thing that you could do. In Vegas, it's cheap to do things like that.
Yeah.
But it's being intentional, because, there's moments in your life where you either choose to do one thing or the other. And I think that's the point. Even sometimes when we have opportunities, we don't take them. And I think maybe we don't see the value in it at the moment because other priorities are at the forefront. But it's really being intentional to invest in your family that way.
Take breaks, please take breaks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you have your own business or your own careers, is take the time out. Take the time out, and with entrepreneurs nowadays, it's like, well, if I take a day out, that's this much money that I would be losing. Do it. I would say do it. I think in our 20s, all we thought about was how we could get to the next level financially.
Right.
And then we can do this, and then we can do that. And I think that's another thing that we would change is money will always come. Always. It'll always be there somewhere. And especially if you are in the kingdom, God always provides, but we would stop worrying so much about the number in our bank account. And I think I would just focus more on the trips, on the memories, on spending time with the kids. Again, it's like there's such a short time. And I would have done that a lot more in our 20s.
Yeah, I think in the process of worrying, of
Yeah.
how much is in your account, it really takes from you.
Yeah.
You don't realize it, and because you're not enjoying.
Yeah, you're not enjoying.
Because in reality is, when you feel these emotions, these feelings, it really drains you. It really.
Then you don't want to go on a trip because
no.
you're too worried.
Or
you're too stressed.
Or I recall a few trips we've taken where we were
Yeah.
so stressed because of where we
Yes.
were, we didn't even enjoy the quality time that we had.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so that's a reality. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. You know, you're a person of faith, and you could still be caught up in that. You know, in that cycle, and you have to break the cycle. You just have to break
Yeah.
it. You have to break it, and no, listen. This is not about what we're going through. This is not about what we have in our account or the struggles and challenges of life.
Let's just live in the moment.
In the moment.
Yeah.
In the moment right now, the only thing I care about is you. I care about our kids, and I care about whether or not we're going to have a great time together.
And we didn't, like I said, we didn't have it all. We didn't have finances all together, but somehow we were still able to take trips. But how did we do that? We were intentional. We'd save for it.
Yeah.
We didn't buy the fancy shoes and purses and then not have enough for our kids to take them on a trip. We were very intentional, and with the finances that did come, we made sure that our kids never knew what it felt like to not have.
Yeah.
And so we were very intentional on taking those trips and making sure that we didn't miss out on those very, younger years. But even in this time with the trips thing, it's that now that the kids are teenagers, what we've been trying to do was take the trips, because that's the only time that we have together. Now that they're teens, we'll all go through our busy day. They'll have sports and they'll have even work, and we see each other for 10 minutes.
That's true.
And so now we plan trips to spend time with them. But because we did that as they were growing up, here and there, they don't mind sitting in a hotel room with us for 48 hours.
I recollect my parents, they were great on the providing side, but they were not good on the intentional side. No matter what, they had to provide for us. There's no not going to work, but they weren't intentional with spending the time like that.
Well, I hope this conversation brought value to you. Like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if there's anything that you would like us to discuss or talk about, or any questions that you may have, please let us know. We would love to hear them so we can bring more value to you as you watch this podcast.
Can't wait to see you next time on Be Real with David and Sherrie.